reason why we chose the Vortex for this month's book club was because it was based on relationships. And I often talk about in the studio how a relationship is a relationship. It doesn't matter if it's a professional relationship, if it is a friendship, or if it's a business relationship. They're all relationships. And as we know, we draw into our life the things that we think about, our vibrational energies. And so we talk a lot about that in the studio. So this was kind of a book that spoke to me. And I love the series of books from Esther and Hicks. And so I thought this was really appropriate, especially with the holidays and how people are feeling, and of course going to in-laws or family, and how do you feel about that? For some people it's a very challenging time of year. And hi, Amuna. Welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Did you get to read the book?
I didn't.
That's okay. Have you ever read any of the Law of Attraction books?
Yeah, I've read that and a lot of Esther and Hicks. I like their energy.
Yeah.
I feel like they're...
Well, that's what they're all about.
They're tapping.
Right?
But what you said about the holidays, I was just like, I chose this holiday season to I feel like I want to stay by myself and just be in my own energy and create from that space rather than go be in this other energy, and that just felt good. And I think it's for that reason what you just said is being around, like, what do I feel comforted by right now? And I would be more comforted just getting to be in my own space creating for 2013 rather than in this other energy field, which I love my family and I miss them and want to see them, but not really right now. I want to do that at another time and have this time for me.
Yeah. So do you think it's a kind of a feeling for you right now of the static that's going on with the holidays and just the busyness that you just kind of want to be in a space that's a little calmer?
Totally.
For you, yeah. And are you finding in your life in general that you're drawing in to your space people that are more like that?
Oh yeah, I mean in a good way. The more I'm coming from a more balanced place, yeah, I'm drawing in great people from that. Yeah, but it's about kind of listening and honoring and not pushing myself when I don't, my energy wants to be more quiet right now.
Yeah. Well, it is a very nesting time of year as well as a busy time of year. I think some people associate that with being maybe a little somber, but for me, I associate it with just wanting to nest, to nurture, and sometimes that's maybe with just yourself. And what better way to give that to other people if you're connected to that in yourself. And so we're talking about the Vortex here, if you guys are just tuning in. And like I said, you can log on to Facebook / the Alisa K Show, and you can type in your questions, interact in the conversation with us, and let us know what you think. If you read the book, let us know some of the comments. If you didn't get an opportunity to read the book, then and something resonates with you about what we're talking about, feel free to type it in and let us know. Michelle, welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Did you read the book?
I listened to it on audio.
Yeah? And what did you think?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it. But I think I fell asleep a couple times because I loved the narrated part with Esther Hicks. So I enjoyed it. I listened to it a couple weeks ago, so there's a lot that I'll have a little refresher listening to y'all. But
yeah,
I enjoyed it.
What did you like most about it?
Well, I watched The Secret a long time ago when Oprah first.
Okay.
And I had no idea that they were.
Oh,
that they worked
tie
together.
in.
Yeah,
okay.
So it was really kind of neat, and I'm kind of scared because I tried to find parking. It's crazy. Right now I'm kind of drawing a blank, but I just really know I have a lot to learn about how I handle my daughter.
Oh, cool.
At the end where they had the must have been some sort of seminar at the end of the audio, and he was talking to a gentleman that had I think a 7-year-old or 8-year-old son, and wow, it was good for me to hear that.
What was good about it? Tell me a little more.
Well, because we don't really think that children My daughter is very in tune to people, and I feel that she's like an old soul, kind of.
Okay.
And when I'm stressed, she picks up on it.
Sure.
And I can put on the face, and she still gets it. She's like, okay, Mom. So, I really have to watch that for myself sometimes, because I can get in that squirrel cage of my own thought process about things, and it does affect everybody around you.
Sure.
Especially your little ones.
Sure, absolutely. And that's a great point, Michelle, because I watch that with my oldest grandson, and he's 4, and so his energy is picked up on by his mom or by me or whoever's around. But what's interesting about children is because they're so untainted.
Innocent.
Innocent, until we get in there and screw them up, of course. But they can pick up on that, what you're saying, what your daughter picks up on. She can pick up on that vibrational energy probably a lot easier than an adult maybe in the room can. And that's why we can't game it, with them the same. And so, we could shove the emotions under the rug and think just put on a happy face with them, but that doesn't work because they know because they're still tuned in.
They're sponges and they pick up everything too.
Absolutely. Hello, Preston. Welcome.
Hello.
Glad you're here.
How are
Glad
you?
you're here. I'm great. How are you?
Doing well.
Good, good. And what's your name?
Stanya.
Estanya? Beautiful. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're doing the book, The Vortex. I don't know if Preston filled you in on that. You read it
A couple days.
like in a couple days, like right when we released it, right?
Overachiever.
I'm totally excited to hear what you have to say about it, because you shared a little bit on the Alisa K 21-day challenge page.
Yeah, I got some notes here and
Oh,
stuff.
sweet. Tell me what
It
you
was good. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in there, like the stuff that we talk about and, that I write about in the 21-day challenge and stuff. Like the first thing was here is like vibrations attract each other. You always get or attract what you put out. So, I mean, that's kind of like the basis of the law of attraction.
Sure.
So, I mean, it started off good for me, and then I just started, like, each of the chapters kind of kept repeating the same stuff, but with just, like, different scenarios.
Okay.
Like, one was, like, general, then they started going into, like, relationships, and then I kind of was like, all right, well, it's the same stuff, it's just... So for me, I kind of like to take everything and condense it down. So for me, it was just a little too much.
I totally agree with, it's the same stuff that before you walked in, we were talking about relationships, whether it be romantic, friendship, professional relationship is a relationship, right? And so we like to separate them and think that they're different, but they're not. So I think in this case, it's repeating the same thing because it is the same thing.
But also somebody else told me too that like a lot of these books are written for people, like typically like from children to as we get older, we have to kind of read that stuff over and over and over again.
So I think we retain about 10% of what is told to us. So anybody, if you're watching, there at home, you're going to retain about 10% of this. And I think that I think you and I talked about that. In fact, Eckhart Tolle does that same style where he will repeat over and over again. And at one point, especially when you listen to him on audio, you think, am I having deja vu? Didn't I already hear this? And yeah, you probably did, because that's his style. And I think that's a similar way with Esther and Jerry Hicks as well. Did you get a chance to read the book?
No.
Well, we're glad you're here, because one of the rules is you don't have to read the book. So it's great, because welcome for coming to your first time, too. But the interaction and the conversation can be just as powerful often as reading the book, and sometimes it's not the right time to read the book, or maybe you didn't know about it. You're just being invited for the first time, and then maybe you'll want to pick it up after, or maybe you'll never want to pick it up, but I don't want anybody to ever shy away not coming because they didn't have time to read it and life got busy, so I'm glad that you're back.
I did like certain things, like I wrote down, like they had a lot of things on like flawed thinking and...
Flawed premise.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me what you like
well,
about
I just kind of wrote down different things on each of those, like thinking, like, for me, I always say, get out of your head and into your heart, and the faster you can get out. So I like that flawed thinking stuff that they talked about, and No, I'm not gonna read the stuff that I have here, but,
Well, it'll come to you.
yeah.
And I was telling, before you guys got here, I was telling the audience that's watching at home that we're going to do this a little different this week. We're going to kind of dive in and get real and raw with things, because this is on relationships, and I think that's important. And I think the way, at least my style of teaching has been, I put it all out there. I mean, if anybody who's read any of my writing, which I think all of you have, except for you probably haven't read it yet. I tell all, you know, there's very little in my life that I don't share publicly, but that is my choice. Of course, I'm not asking y'all to dive into your past or your present or any thoughts that you may have and share if you don't want to, certainly. But I think because this is on relationships, and because everybody at some point wants to draw one into their life, I think it's fascinating. So you and I are single, you know, well, I think you're single as well. So do you feel, I mean, first of all, I know it's our choice right now to be single, right? Do you think that your vibrational energy is drawing into your life the kind of relationships, maybe not the relationship, but the kind of relationships that you want to have?
Yeah, it's very awesome. Like, I'm enjoying right now being in my own energy and feeling my own energy. And even though I want a long-term relationship and a partner, I feel like I'm still opening parts of myself, and that needs to happen to attract that right partner. But I can see always in my life that the kind of men I'm attracted to is directly relational to my energy. And I've spent a lot of years working on myself for that very reason, because I really want an amazing relationship. And I know that to have it, I have to really have that with myself. And like, I know we both know, like, it's a journey. And there's so many different levels, and I've had great relationships along the way. And each one, like, had that vibration. But then it's like, I grow beyond that, and then it's time to kind of expand my vibration, and then other people come in that need it.
Expand, that's a great word, and I recently used that a lot, because relationships are about growth. That's what they're here for. And I love that they talked about this in the book. But the expansion of us, so, you know, in your experience, in your personal life, as you've expanded, what has been the biggest challenge in the relationship that has made it go down a different path with that expansion?
Well, I think that we have to realize, I've had to realize that not everyone I'm meant to be with forever, that I am going to grow and expand. And I think the problem is if I'm trying to make that person grow and expand the same as me, because they have their own path. And I think our vibrations come together for a while, and then they may go separate places. But like, recognizing when that is, and not hanging on longer, and not blaming. So I've had to learn that, because we're taught you're going to meet the man and it's going to be like fairy tale forever. But I feel like I've met the men that have been right for a certain time, and then I've grown, and then it's time for something different.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So here's a question then. How do we, and anybody who wants to chime in with this, once we meet that relationship that is matching our vibration at that time, and if the goal is to have it long-term, last forever, whatever your desire is, then as there's the expansion of each person, how do you bring it back together, in your opinion? So you are going through life together. Otherwise, as we're expanding, you know, people are expanding, going into different times, so you're going to go off on different patterns. How do you bring it back together?
I think that first I need to like really be whole in myself and not be looking that I need this person to make me whole, and I've had to realize that one. And then seeing that we're these two whole beings, and honor that I want a man, that he has his purpose in certain things, and I have mine, but there's going to be certain purposes that we have together that draw us together. And that's what I want in my relationship. I want us to have a common purpose, but yet also our own wholeness. And I feel like that's the secret that's going to let it last, because then that person has the freedom to be who they are and grow, and I have the freedom to be who I am and grow, but yet we have these common bonds that we nurture, that we communicate about, that we make time every day for, to build and put into. But I think if I'm feeling like I need that person for something, I'm coming from a whole different energy space.
I think that what the problem is, though, is that happens initially. That's like in anything. There's usually like a 3-month period, which I find with...
The honeymoon stage?
Yeah, there's coaching, there's relationships, you know, there's seminar, I mean, there's like, or not seminars, but just any kind of relationship that you have, after about 3 months, it kind of separates. And then what happens is that we are individual people, and then what we start doing is we start going away from ourselves, and we start, you know, like hearing and saying, well, why don't you do this? Or why aren't you more like this? And then we start trying to change that person to the image that we want. And then after a few months we go, well, you're not the person that I initially met. And you're like, yeah, I've changed. And I think that's the biggest problem when we do find people, is that we go away from ourselves. And that's really the biggest thing, is that we need to really tap in and kind of realize that, you know, the biggest or the best relationship in the first relationship needs to be with us and our source, you know, because we're mind, body, and soul. We're not just a body. And so I think people forget that soul part, which is that energy, and then they move away from that. And then
Has that been your personal experience, Preston?
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just like even in coaching, like I know that, like, that's why I do 8-week coaching, you know, or 2-month coaching, because after the 3rd month, or in anything, like, and I do internet marketing, there's membership sites. After about the 3rd month, people start dropping off. So really there needs to be some kind of, I guess, I mean, it's a little different in business than a relationship, but there needs to be something like special that happens every few months to kind of...
Okay, so that's a good point. So something special. Okay, so in relationships we look typically for that person to make it special. You know, that's been flawed premise, right? That Abraham talks about. But that special, then when the honeymoon phase, and I'm going to say in a romantic relationship for the example, when that has worn off, then suddenly we start looking outside for other stimulation. And I'm not saying looking outside of the relationship for physical stimulation either. It could be, you know, for men, you know, going and buying a new car. You know, for women, it's buying a new pair of shoes. You know, it's something to give that rush. You know, to make something feel good inside. And oftentimes it's pulling away.
Let's go on a vacation. You know, something like that.
Well, and that can be a wonderful, joyous experience that can expand your mind and your heart, of course. But I'm talking about when people are looking for something to fill that void, and really it's an experience of running from self. You know, I mean, growing up in Los Angeles, that was, you know, pretty typical. People were running, looking, searching. You know, I mean, you can relate to that.
Shorter.
You know, and so, you know, relationships are here today, gone tomorrow. And then what happens when, you know, you look back and you think, well, that relationship didn't work, and then you base every other relationship on what didn't work. What happens is you keep drawing in what didn't work, because your focus is on what didn't work instead of what did work, you know.
Or if you do say that, like, well, what would you like about that relationship? And they go, well, I like this, and I like this, but I didn't like this, and then they just focus on that.
Right. It kind of canceled out everything that you liked as well, right? Yeah.
And then you meet someone new, and you're like looking at them from the eyes of, are you like that person? So you're not even giving them a chance to authentically like.
And then they get upset, go, stop mentioning their name.
So Michelle, what was your experience with relationships? I mean, you've had interesting experience in your life with different relationships, and have recently found what didn't work, and are starting to focus more on what did work and what you want. So what was your experience?
Well, you know, both times I was married, I thought I met my soulmate, because I was convinced this is it. interestingly enough, both of my ex-husbands have been in my life a lot lately, which is really kind of strange. And I had an ex-boyfriend show up not too long ago at my house, who had chosen a different partner, and he was trying to sell me on dating him, which was comical. But I actually have been working really hard on the relationship with me to know what I like, so I will be that complete person and not have the need financially, emotionally, whatever, for this other person. So I actually, for the first time in my life, opened the door and said, I think you can go now. And, you know, normally after that would happen, or if I ever tried that in the past, I'd be like, oh my God, what did I do? And it was like really comforting to not have that, because I'm more okay with me than I was this time last year, and I know that. So I've been questioning, and especially when I was listening to this book, why my exes were coming back in my life so much.
That's awesome. That was a question. You know, that was a question I was going to ask. So, because that's what I do for myself. You know, I mean, whether it was a romantic interaction, when people start resurfacing in my life, not that I don't want them to resurface, I kind of ask myself, what is going on with where they're at and where I'm at that is a match, because something is drawing us together.
It's like, why is this happening?
Sure. I mean, everybody who's sitting in this room has been drawn to each other for some reason, you know, and I love like Facebook for that instance. You know, I'll look on there, I'll friend people sometimes just by a vibration that I get from their picture, you know, and I'll look at it and I'll think, what is it? Is it a look in their eyes? Is it an energy of the picture? What's speaking to me? And then after I build a relationship with this person, I'll look into, well, what was that vibrational match that was going on with them and myself? It doesn't matter if it's a male or a female, but I always find it interesting. So what did you come up with, Michelle, that why you have drawn them back in?
For me, I think it's just because of the work I'm trying to do. So some of it was really healing. My first husband is sick again. So we've got to say all those things that we couldn't say because we were both so incredibly unhealthy at the time of our breakup. So we're kind of both getting to make amends, which has been really cool. The other one is the father of my daughter, so we're trying to get along so we can have some family gatherings, especially at Christmas time. And we just had a recital for her, a dance recital, so it meant a lot for her, for us to all be there for her. Because she wants everybody to get along. She's a kid. She's not tainted by all that.
Well, shouldn't everybody get along?
Yes. I hear you in my head very often. Trust me. And so again, it's interesting where her dad's at. And I mean, this time last year, I could have never been in the same room with him. So, and they talked about the art of allowing and all that. And I found that a lot with even my mom and stuff recently, and my brothers, and it's, you know, it's a pretty...
They also say one thing too is to let go of that stuff too.
Yeah, because you can drag it around behind you forever, and you're never, and again, you're going to take it into that next relationship with someone, and you're going to do the same thing I know you will, and it's just kind of unfair to that person.
That to me, like, it's always been important for me to leave every relationship without harboring these negative energies. And even in my last relationship, that's been really hard. But just recently, I felt like I got to this like place of forgiveness in myself, and I even spoke with him and was able to say, to apologize, because I apologized not for how I was, but I apologized that the way I was hurt him, and I never acknowledged that I hurt him. And I just wanted to acknowledge that and come to a place, because I didn't like thinking about him and having this negative feeling, because I know that energy would then go to my next relationship, and I don't want that. So I've always, with every relationship that's ended, that's been a very important intention for me, to not have negativity about them and to be able to look back and hold
love and growth.
Yes.
So on page 49, it says the three-step process of creation, and I think this is what you're referring to, Michelle. So first, ask. Second, answer. and third, allow. Okay? So, add the contrast of life's experiences cause you to do what you do. Answer, that is not of the work of you from your physical perspective, but instead of the work of non-physical source energy. Preston, what does that mean to you when I read that? It's not of your physical perspective, it's the work of non-physical source energy.
Well, it's kind of like what I just said, and I think they talk about that next, that the relationship between you and your source is the most significant relationship of all, and that we're not separate.
Yeah, I agree.
And since we, like things attract, if I think they talk a little bit further out, I say, when you're aware of your emotional guidance system, that's one thing I like that he called it, the emotional guidance system, and that was pretty cool. That wasn't it. If you're not enough to seek and find harmony with your source or yourself, you have nothing to give your partner.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a big one, because we look often, and I certainly have done this myself, but we look outside of source, self, to somebody else to create happiness. You're looking at me like you totally get this, T.
Oh, totally.
T's behind the scenes over there, everybody. So what's resonating for you right now?
That's always a journey, and it's looking to somebody else to provide energy or connection or whatever that doesn't really matter. But it's staying connected enough and having the awareness at that moment that, well, hold on, I got to reconnect to source. This is not the direction I want to head within my life. It's self-defeating.
So, as we talk about in the studio, we talk about integrity and integrity breaks. And so, for me, I personally believe that if you are not in integrity with yourself, you are out of alignment with source energy. Therefore, you blow up your life, and I know that each one of you who have done any work in the studio, that's one of the first questions I ask. What does integrity mean to you? And where are you out of alignment with integrity? And, because we're out of alignment all the time with integrity. Nobody's in complete alignment with integrity 100% of the time, every single day. There's always little integrity breaks, and that could show up in settling, compromising. And I don't mean, coming together and coming to an agreement. I mean compromising when you don't want to be doing something, and you don't want to be doing something, and you're doing it to people please. I'm talking about things
Yeah, it's like integrity, like you do things in order to have integrity for other people to approve rather than for yourself.
Approval, absolutely.
Need for approval.
Need for approval. People pleasing, need for approval. That certainly doesn't draw in the relationships that you want to have in your life, and you get more of that. Therefore, you get people at that place in your life that are seeking approval as well, because we're drawing in that same vibrational energy.
I talk about it like when I write in my book, I call it wearing a mask, and in the Bible they call it beguile, which is basically just kind of doing things by like trickery. That's the definition of that. So you're fooling, really you're fooling yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. The third one, big one for me, the allow. You must find a way to be a vibrational match to what you are asking for, or you will not allow it into your experience, even though the answer is available for you. And that has been a huge one for me, because, I ask, answer, but the allowing. So how many times has anybody in this room, or maybe at home, please type in your questions and ask and interact with us, because it's fun. Have you met somebody who is dynamic in your life? You've asked for this person, right? They show up, and you're just kind of blown away thinking, that's what I asked for. And then something happens, and it shows up like, this is too good to be true. This isn't, no. Oh, wow, what if this ends up like the last relationship? They could hurt me. What if they hurt me? I don't want to be hurt again. Gosh, I can't go through that again, All those questions start running through your mind. And then you notice suddenly that person starts to disconnect from you. Okay? Interactions that you were having, phone, hanging out, whatever it is, far and few. And you start going, now the story is that person wasn't the right person. Then you start finding all those things that you maybe thought reminded you of the ex that you didn't like, and then before you know it, you've just sabotaged yourself in the relationship that you wanted. Who's experienced that in this room? Be honest. You not experienced? Wow. I'm gonna let you sit right next to me and you can tell them if you have, because that is like, man, I've done that so many times, and I said we were going to kind of get real raw and personal here. So, I did it the other day. I totally realized that I was creating something that I didn't want, and it followed me all day long yesterday. It hung on all day long. And so, I'm out to dinner, and I'm out with T and a friend of mine, and something is said at dinner, and it triggers something in my past, and literally, I go into a sweat. The room starts spinning, and I'm trying to get out of the booth.
Start shape-shifting.
No shape-shifting, but I was ready to vomit at the table, and I certainly didn't want to do that, and I couldn't get T out of my way fast enough, and she kept playing with me, saying she wasn't going to let me out, and I just was praying to God that I didn't lose it there. So I got up. I was completely disoriented. I was ready to pass out, just trying to hold it together. I walk into the bathroom, and humbling as it can be, as I'm laying on the bathroom floor next to the toilet in a sweat, I'm thinking, how did I get here? How did I get here with this? And so something had triggered and brought up a fear in me. And so I had to sit there for a few minutes. I don't know how long I was gone, but I had to sit there and reconnect with myself on what was really happening. Of course, I got up and I walked back to the table, and nobody knew, the difference, which is how it usually is in my life. But it's very humbling when you have a moment like that, and you have to sit with your fears of what's coming up, because I certainly don't want to bring that vibration into my life. And, most people are going to think, they're going to look at me and they're going to think, that probably never happens to me. I see that look in your eye right now, Michelle. You're going, I can't
get anything from her.
I can't believe that.
I think it's all about awareness too, because we instantly go into the past or the present and we say, what if this happens, or that did happen in the past, and when we become aware of that fear, then we focus on it. The thing that that they talk about letting go is that the opposite is true. Is when we let go of that fear and we focus on the opposite, which I think a lot of people don't do, we can instantly come out of that. Because I had the same thing.
The opposite of the fear?
Yeah, because there's really two emotions. There's either love or there's fear. Those are the two real emotions that we put out at the basic sense. So the same thing happened to me. I was driving, listening to some Christmas music. It brought me back to my childhood, and I started going, oh yeah, and then my parents, and I'm not, I don't really communicate too much with my parents anymore, so negative feelings were coming in, and then I was going, okay, I'm aware of this now. Now, what do you choose to do? And then I focused on something else, and in 30 seconds, I didn't even remember that fear anymore. It was gone, and I was instantly happy again.
Well, they talk about that in the book, about if it doesn't feel good, then you're out of alignment with Source.
But awareness, when we're aware of that and
Yes.
coming to the opposite, that's where I was getting to the point about the opposite, is we can certainly just change the way we feel by thinking of something happy.
Well, I get what you're saying with that, about thinking, changing our thought process, but when we are in a deep space like that, when you're laying on the floor in a restaurant next to a toilet, let me tell you, you're not thinking about happy thoughts. You're thinking about, how do I not vomit right now, and how do I get myself back to the table. So, but it takes that's the challenge. When you've done a lot of work on that, you can bring yourself back to what's going on for you. But if you haven't, and if you are stuck in that place of that awful feeling that you are feeling at that moment, it can progress and progress, even in a thought of, I'm going to throw up, I'm going to throw up, oh my gosh, I don't want to throw up. So you hear where I'm going, I don't want this, which is bringing more of what I don't want into it, because that concern, that worry, that fear of that's going to happen brings it into the forefront, and then it happens. So what I instantly did was I identified, and this is where the awareness that you're talking about, what's going on for me? Why is this coming up? Okay, I identified with it. That's certainly not what I want to experience right now. I want to experience this moment in pleasure. I want to be present to this moment. And immediately as I brought myself back to, I wanted to be present. And we talked a lot about this today. It kept coming up on coaching calls about present. That's why the reason we get up at 5:30 in the morning on the 21-day challenge is because that stillness in the morning, that presence to it. Because if you get up at 8 a.m. in the morning, you got to be at work, let's say at 9, you're rushing, you hit the ground running, you're in the car, you're grabbing something out the door to eat, you're not present to your food, you're not chewing it properly, you're not digesting it, you're in the car, you're not even aware of your surroundings. Before you know it, you cut somebody off, somebody cuts you off, and you're just not present. So it takes that presence, that awareness to reconnect within, and that is being in alignment with source energy when you are present and aware. And I think that's really, really powerful.
That's why I focus on my little catchphrase, enjoy the moment, because that's all we have. I mean, the past has already happened, we can't change it, and the future hasn't happened, so the only thing we have is right now. So if we can try to focus on enjoying the moment, even when we're in that scenario, there's always things we can think about, and not instantly, like mourning, that's the same thing. Someone dies and you could be over it in 5 minutes, or you could take the rest of your life and never get over it. So it's like, how long do you want to stay that way?
Well, I think in those moments it's reconnecting to source. I mean, that's that final little piece that we haven't really verbalized, is being in that moment as you experienced, where did that come from in your past, and then going, okay, I get it, and you want to be in pleasure, but in pleasure you got to reconnect to source. Right? That's that last little piece that we haven't really talked about.
We have emotions too, and letting those emotions out, it's healthy, but living there is...
Well, we certainly don't want to harbor them and live there, but the one thing that I think we all can agree on is we are our own source of pain. So in relationships, you want to often, when not connected to source, when not in that feel-good vibration, point the finger. It's you. You did this to me. No, nobody did anything to you. And the reality is that we drew that experience into our lives. And so there is some personal responsibility there, but very challenging when one is in that pain and holding on to that pain. And oftentimes I've found that people that are so used to being in pain are afraid of letting that go, because what would they do then? How many people, and this is really common.
They feel good.
Well, they don't feel good, but they're used to feeling the way they are, and they can't imagine feeling otherwise. And it happens commonly with women in relationships. You'll hear of women that have been abused, that they will choose abusive relationships over and over again because they don't know what it feels like to be connected to source. Maybe we talked about this with parents in here. What it feels like with that. Are we at commercial? Okay. I heard a noise. I didn't know what was talking. You can chime in at any time if you want, please. If you feel like it, I'd love to hear from you. I don't want to put you on the spot.
I definitely had a thought come to my mind when you guys were talking about like some kind of emotions from the past.
Yeah.
And then what came to my mind is when something like that comes to me, I look at what it is and pretty much like what I made it mean. Because usually that meaning of that experience makes me react to it in a way like I don't want it to happen, I'm too freaked out of it. Or like when I can pinpoint what it is and then change the meaning of it, then even if it comes back again, it is not as powerful.
Yes, yeah, I agree. So again, we give meaning to all that we see. So I think what I'm hearing you say is you've attached the meaning to the situation, and therefore now the situation isn't in alignment with what you want to be experiencing because you're attaching it to, like Preston was saying with his childhood, maybe a feeling that didn't feel good prior, and that's the meaning you wrapped around it, when that's actually false. That's not really what's happening. It's just what we've created to happen.
It's our perception, and we go back to the original perception that we have, and we could certainly change that perception of, you know, that past.
And I think that is what maybe you meant with change, feel happy, change the
Right.
perception.
Right.
You know, because maybe we can't feel happy at that
Right.
time. You know, somebody might be in an experience like this week with the children dying. And
Connecticut.
yeah, and you know, so how do you feel good about that? You know, and I watched that interview, I think you posted it actually with that father. And you know, what courage and strength it took to get up there and speak so eloquently, you know, powerful. I'm very sensitive to what I post and put out there on Facebook just because I know what an impact it has subconsciously, but I did listen to that. I chose actually not to click on it because that was just what energy I was connected with, but I did pay very close attention to it. And I thought, how, you know, again, like we talked about each time, it seems to be keep coming up with A Thousand Names for Joy by Byron Katie. You know, she talked about finding joy in death. You know, same thing. How do you find joy in an experience like that? How do you align? How do you find forgiveness? How do you have that perception when you're aching in so much pain?
And you know what was beautiful about him is he wasn't denying his pain. You know, he was like,
Yeah.
we are in the deepest pain of our life. And
Expressing love still in that moment,
Unbelievable.
expressing love for his child, sharing with us what that child's life was.
And that's a choice too, because some other parents, they can't do that.
totally.
They choose, they won't even, you know, they don't even want to acknowledge that it's still, that it happened, you know. And so how long will it take for, you know, that person to kind of get over it versus the guy that, you know, you're talking about that steps up?
I don't know if you ever get over it. I think you bring it into your vibrational space of deciding what meaning you want to give to it. So, you know, my experience recently with one of my best friends of 25 years passing was, what meaning do I want to give to her life? And in that, it was her choice of destruction of her life, but I knew that she was more than that, so how was I going to give meaning to that? And it was going to be differently than focusing on how it ended, you know, on this planet, you know, so I think it is that perception.
And really too, I mean, if anybody's religious, I mean, you know, unfortunately that's a tragedy that happened. However, if you believe, you know, in the kingdom of heaven that they're going to be, you know, living an eternal life up there, then, you know, that's good. Because I grew up with watching my mom die from cancer, and she passed away when I was 9, so, but my sister took it a lot harder, you know, and I got over it really quick. I kind of knew it was going to happen, and I accepted it, and I got over it pretty quick. So for me, you know, when I see people mourning for a long time over death, I don't understand that, because I got over it quick, because it was like what you were saying.
That has been your experience. Yeah.
Right.
So it's
Well, it was
actually-
because I chose to focus on not the negative side of it. I chose to, you know, like, well, she had an awesome life before that. You know, at least I got to know her for a few years, 3 or 4 years, but.
So when, in the part where they talk about cancer coming in the book, do you remember that part? And Abraham expresses that. Did that resonate with you in any way because of your mom's passing from that?
You know, it's just, I'm kind of indifferent. Like I said, you know, I'm kind of, I never really had any of those negative, you know, feelings that most people do. So I just kind of, I'm indifferent really about, you know, the suffering. But I do feel suffering. It's not like I don't suffer.
Sure.
You know, if I see something happen.
Death is just a different experience.
I just accept that it's going to happen to every one of us. So there's no way we're getting out of death. So some people will go sooner, some people will, you know, last 100 years or so, but eventually we're all going to end up there.
So let me ask you, Preston, then, do you feel that we draw those experiences as well into our life, cancer?
Absolutely, because I mean, think about the guy who's healthy his whole life, then all of a sudden he decides to go get a physical, and, you know, he dies from a heart attack or they come down and say, oh, you have a brain tumor and you have three weeks to live, or whatever, you know, how could the healthiest person and the happiest person all of a sudden have that happen? They drew that to themselves. Like maybe deep down inside they were like, God, I hope I never get cancer. I hope I never get this tumor.
Well, here, let me ask you this, though, because this is a little contradictory with what they're saying in the book, with being in alignment with Source. So, are they happy? Are they the happiest person? Are they healthy if they've drawn cancer into their life? How can that be possible? If we are energy, connected to our Source energy, and we develop something like that, are we not out of alignment with Source energy? And that's how that's developed?
Because the opposite could happen too. If there's people that have cancer that say, oh, there's, you know, it's terminal, and then they end up living, it goes into remission.
But I think it's because sometimes these experiences come into our life, we're out of Source energy, and the people that heal it are the ones that get back connected. They hear that loud freaking call and go within, you know, like it's not, you can't band-aid it, but the people that really heal go to like, what is the source? And I think you're right. I think that it is. Almost everything is from a disconnection.
Okay.
So, you know, we talk about this all the time. You get a message, you get a problem, you get a crisis, you know. So how many of you in here have got a message that you did not listen to and then got a problem?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody know. How many of you got the problem and didn't listen to it and got a crisis?
Absolutely.
What was the crisis?
Probably more so my health.
Your health. Okay. So you feel like that was a crisis or a problem?
Well, it was the problem becoming a crisis.
Okay. Did you pay attention?
I'm certainly working on that.
Okay.
I
And
think so, because I'm here.
you're here meaning physically breathing on this planet, or here
Yes.
that showed up for book
Here,
club?
trying, that too, to get reconnected to that.
I'm playing with you with that, but I
I
know
know
that's
you are.
important because it's true.
Think
When
you're
you
much
come
better
here
now.
and you're connected, I know you've come a long way, baby. I mean, there would have been time you would have crumbled and went into a sweat, right, if we were talking about this, and now you're open to doing it, so bravo to you. That's part of the healing, and that's part of the interconnection within that you can do this now, and that you chose not to before from feeling that disconnect, so you should be very proud of yourself with that. So you're here, you are open to receiving messages, and you are feeling more connected than you have in the past. Okay. So you think that's going to give you the awareness to not go into a crisis?
Yes.
What about you, T? I know you got a thought over there.
I try and stay extremely aware of the whole process of first we get a message and I figure out what that is, and if it turns into a problem, obviously I missed something, and I don't know that I've ever had a crisis, and I don't plan to. So if it's gotten to a problem level, I've done a poor job with my awareness and my work on myself.
So for me, I don't know what comes after crisis, but I have a feeling what comes after there, I don't get to define it because I won't be here. That's my view of what comes after crisis, and I definitely know that I was out of alignment with my source energy for a long time, created illness, definitely got the message, chose to avoid the message, forcing into a relationship maybe that wasn't a vibrational match, and in that ignoring the messages over and over again, got a problem, got very sick, and borderline on a crisis, definitely in that mode, and had to have the awareness to bring it back. But that wasn't that long ago. You know, we talked about this the other day. That's 4 years ago, you know, when I was very sick. So, and this journey here is not about perfection. And I think that's something that is really important to note, because we start to think, oh, well, if we're not we have to be perfect to be in line with source energy. That's just not how we are designed. It is the awareness, once again.
But what's perfect,
I don't know
good or right or wrong, it's just a
I-
perception.
Yeah.
It's somebody else's perception.
And I think we're here, the universe is giving us these different experiences and opportunities, and we get to, in each moment, choose to come back to source or not, or we can stay there and experience that, but we have this choice. But it's kind of cool when you can think of it like that. Like we're not here to just be punished, but we're here to kind of explore and choose and come back, and life's going to give us opportunities for that. And it's like you come back. Like even I just had a car accident. Someone hit me from behind and just totally like whacked out my body, and that threw me off. Like what is freaking going on? But I'm having to slow down, be more present to myself. I'm doing all these therapies, and I'm not willing to accept that, like, that I'm going to be injured like this, where some people would just go, oh, well, I'm injured, like, no. So it's calling forth another level in me, but it's also making me very much take time and slow down and relax and be more aware, especially
kind of
when
like
I'm
what we were
driving.
talking about, that rush, hit the ground running in the morning, and then maybe, and I'm certainly not saying that, you didn't rear end yourself. However, perhaps, maybe there was some place, if you reflect back on the day, where there was a misalignment.
I don't think that. I just think, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. 'Cause
Catching up to you.
I was pretty calm. Like I would see that, but I was super calm, not in a rush. And that's what I think was so shocking to my body. That I was not like already stressed and tense. I was very relaxed, and then this thing just came and hit me hard, and my body was like, whoa, this trauma. And I think sometimes things do come unexpected.
Blindside you?
But then it's like, how do I come back?
How do you recover?
Sometimes things happen too. I was in a car accident. I was a passenger. I wasn't even in control. And when we slid sideways 75 miles an hour into a tree. And as we started to slide, time basically, like a second became like 10 seconds. It was like boom. And I saw like everything like really clear. And like it happened like that. But as it was happening, to me it was like boom, boom. And I was like, just, I don't know, time just kind of altered. So there's definitely something that changed, because I had never been that way since, and it was in that moment that was the only time that it ever happened.
So you're saying that shifted your life from that experience?
I'm just saying, in that moment, time basically, it wasn't like 1 second, 2 seconds, was like, a second was like 10 seconds or longer, and I saw things like really clearly as what was happening, and I was able to kind of, like you said, just really get relaxed instead of get really tense. For some reason, my body just kind of went really limp. And as we hit, I could have been killed.
Well, children have that ability, when they fall. That's why they don't typically get injured. And then as adults, we try to do something and we have an injury because
catch ourselves.
Because we tighten up. So absolutely. We're going to talk about the next book here, and the books come to me, and I don't choose them by somebody telling me to choose them. They just kind of speak to me and jump off the shelf. And we've done this author before, and I really like him, Dr. Wayne Dyer, not Dryer. She likes to do that, gets me thinking of it. And it's called The Shift by Dr. Wayne Dyer. And it's taking your life from ambition to meaning. Taking your life from ambition to meaning. And that really caught me, besides the fact the shift, because we talk about in the studio all the time, shift. And I think there's a lot of people, especially that we're playing with in our lives, that have ambition, right? Wouldn't you say that in your life too, Preston? You have a lot of people that you're playing with that have ambition, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you'd say that too, I'm sure, right? Would you say you know a lot of people with ambition? How about you? Yeah. So, but what's the meaning, What's the meaning in your life? And we've been talking a lot about this with clients. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? So I'm a very ambitious person, but what does that ambition do for me if I I don't have meaning attached to it. So I thought this would be interesting. We're going to talk about it next month. It's a small book, and I took that into consideration because it's busy. It's holiday time, right? People are going out having holiday cheer. We've got the new year upon us. We will meet back here in 2013. I hope you guys all have a blessed holiday season. Thank you for coming out and playing. Thank you at home for tuning in. Make sure you go visit the Alisa K page. Talk about what you liked, what you didn't like, what you'd like to hear maybe more of.